As you said, I'm Rick Chappell. I'm the GIS administrator for Sparklight. We're broadband communications company. It's funny, our headquarters is in Phoenix, but we don't serve Phoenix. We serve some outlying areas in Arizona, New Mexico, Idaho, Washington, down to the Midwest, all the way down to the Mississippi coast, etc. Anyway, I started doing GIS way back when I was in the Air Force in 1985. There was 4 of us on different bases trying to get something going. I cheated. I skipped the normal procurement process and got my equipment and software in several months before anybody else. Basically, I attached the computer and the software onto a construction contract that we had going on with the Corps of Engineers. So we skipped all of that normal process. That also allowed me to get the Air Force's very first, I'm going to age myself, 386 computer. They weren't allowed in the Air Force yet, but I had one. Since then, I've been consulting or working with utilities, water, sewer, gas, and electric, and now I work for Sparklight. So what I'd like to talk to you today about is the GIS P certification, and primarily the test. Let's see. Get things working here. There we go. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about the test itself. The presentation is actually comes from the GIS Certification Institute, and I think it was written for a 90-minute presentation. We don't have 90 minutes. We've got 20. So I'm going to leave a lot of it on the floor and focus heavily on testing and test prep. I think that's what most people have expressed that they were most interested in. I will leave all the slides in the presentation that are online. So if you want to look at some of the other information, the history and all the other things about the test, it will be there. So let's get going. Kind of the outline I'm going to follow. Again, mostly I'm going to work on the process and exam. The rest of it, we'll see if I have time for it. Real quick, this is the current process for getting your GISP. It's changed over the years, but now you have to have a portfolio and you have to take the exam. You have to sign an ethics statement, have 4 years of experience. Your portfolio has to include a combination of education, experience, contributions to this industry. You have to have minimum points in each category as well as kind of a balance of those. And the experience points are going to be based on your level of involvement. So, for example, if you're 100% in charge of the project, you get maximum points. If you're only participating on it, you get a lesser number of points. And then, of course, the GIS, Geospatial Core Technical Knowledge Exam. Now, to get the process, you go to the gisci.org, and it's right on the main page down. Look at the top, the exam info, the applicants. The applicants is where you want to go, and it's going to give us the information that we need to all the stuff to log in. Now, notice on the helpful links on the right side, it has the GIS-CI Procedures Manual. If you're wanting to do your certification, first thing you want to do is probably get a copy of that downloaded and read through it. It's going to go through all the things you need for the portfolio and the different pieces. There's a cost. You've got an application fee of $100, your portfolio review fee of $100, your exam fee is $250, and it's good for 3 years. And then after that, there's an annual maintenance that you can do. You can either do it once a year or pay for 3 years at a time. Now, I will tell you that in the test, and of course that's kind of the background, we don't need to worry about that too much. The test is actually pretty good. I put off getting my GSP until the test took place. At that point, I felt like it really had some real meaning to it. And so I took that inaugural test. I wasn't expecting a lot when I went into it. I've done a lot of certification tests, and it seems like they're either random or kind of playing Trivial Pursuit. I was actually kind of impressed. I actually enjoyed parts of the test. I kind of wish I had some more time to discuss some of the answers. But don't do that. You don't have time. It's timed. So curb your enthusiasm and keep working through the test, and you can talk about it afterwards. But anyway, it does focus on the applied knowledge that has been identified throughout the whole kind of GIS technology area. And where we get that information is an organization puts together a book called the Gis Book of Knowledge. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And they've identified 10 content areas with lots of subject areas in each one of those areas. We offer the test twice a year, and it can be done at the beginning of your career or in the end of your career. Keep in mind, the last piece that I want you to understand, there's a 6-year window from the time you start or pass your test to finish and get your everything finished and get your certification. You know, that 6 years sounds like a long time, but it's pretty easy for that to fly by before you realize it. So don't dilly-dally once you start. Get going and work on it. Again, started about out of that GIS Book of Knowledge, there's over 400 different topic areas, and we've decided about 10% of them kind of are relevant, and so they kind of identified the core areas. Here's where you get to it, the GIST-BOK, the GIST Body of Knowledge, sponsored by the UCGIS. And you go there, and of course, that's what the webpage looks like. They just revamped it all. One of the challenges, you're going to see these topics. These are the main topic areas. They don't quite match exactly, but they'll line up pretty well. It's been redone recently as well. And this gives you kind of the areas that you want to look at. Now, that's a lot of stuff. Covers a lot of material. So one of the things that they've done is there's an exam blueprint on the GIS certification page. If you go to exam info, the helpful links, the exam blueprint goes through and identifies the weighting of each of the areas. So you can look at this and kind of plan your preparation around it. We've got percentage for each of those knowledge areas. And so you can use that to kind of plan. Personally, for example, if I was taking the test today, I don't do a lot of map making in my work. In my 30-plus years of GIS work, most of my map making has been using a standard template because I'm putting out designs or design drawings or standard maps that are approved and have been around for a long time. I don't generally just make maps off the cuff other than for a quick analysis for somebody to look at. And so I would probably want to put a lot more focus on cartography and visualization than I normally would. On the other hand, in my 30 years, I've spent a lot of time doing system design and database design. I probably wouldn't spend as much time on that. So take a look at these areas, and then you can use that to kind of target your search. And then, of course, we go through in more detail. For each of these areas, we've identified the specific knowledge, skills, ability areas to focus on. So what we can do is we can take, for example, this very first section, the understanding of data, coordinate systems, projections. Maybe I'm a GIS person, I've been doing that, but I don't really know my coordinate systems and projections really well, right? So I want to stop the surveyors from laughing at me, or I want to do it on the test, so I want to do a little research. I'm going to go to the body of knowledge, and I'm going to look up the topic area that kind of fits, and I look at these, and oh, there we are, data management. So now I'm going to click on the data management, and I'm going to look through these topics here. And oh, sure enough, there on the right side under georeferencing, those are some areas that I can look at. And so let's click on one and go into the geographic coordinate systems. And there's a series of objectives. Now, these are topic areas that I can then start to research. I can pull out texts from school or various manufacturers through EURESA training, all sorts of places to get resources to study for this and prepare. But let's take the last one, write an algorithm that converts geographic coordinates from decimal degrees to degree units in seconds, right? It's not incredibly hard, but if I want to make sure I'm getting it right, I can do a search and look on the ArcGIS help. There is converting degrees, minutes, seconds to decimal degree values, and it kind of walks through the process. So I can kind of study this and make sure I understand it and be prepared for the test there. So we can go through the entire test this way in the cartography and visualization, we've got these areas: data acquisition, data manipulation, analytical methods. Now, like I said, some people may not work with all of these areas all the time, and so plan your study and work that way as well. You can get through all of these topic areas in that way. The benefit of this, right, it helps us make sure that we're retrieving a competency level. But now, like I said, the process. Start with the blueprint. Use that blueprint to review what you know and what you don't know and to study based on that. There's not that many areas overall. So, for example, if I plan on 90 days, I want to prepare for the GISP test, maybe I'll take 2 days to focus on each area, and I'll pull up and review each of those, or maybe plan 1 day and then plan for a month of in-depth focus of areas that I've identified that I have weaknesses on. So evaluate those KSAs, the knowledge, skill, ability areas that you don't know. Come up with a plan to study those, and then look at the there's a new official practice exam. It just recently came out. It's online. It costs $30 to take. You can sign up for it right there, and it's made up of 50 items. It's an hour test out of the actual 100 official exam questions, and it's going to look just like the actual test. It's put out by the same people, PSI Online. It'll give you an overall score. Plus, what's really great, it's going to tell you how you did in each of the content areas. So that'll allow you to then go through correct answers and look for what you've done. So that official process exam, really worthwhile. Don't wait until the day before you take the test. Plan for a good month or so before you're planning on take the test, or even more. You might even do it at the very beginning, and then you can take it again towards the end if you want, or again use that as an original start point. But get that blueprint, do your self-exam, get the do the preparations and plan ahead, and then, hey, look, we got through the test process. We've got a minute left. Kind of just so you know, there's some goals of updating every 3 or 4 years, potentially looking at certifications. What I would like to do is open up. We've got just over 5 minutes left in my portion. I'd like to see if you've got questions or areas that you'd like to focus on or talk about more. And now
Rick, there was a question from. Are you want to take questions?
Yeah, that would be great. I don't see the questions. I guess I need to stop sharing to see questions.
No,
right?
I'll read them to you. That's okay. I'll read them to you. So we have a question from Angie Garcia, who wants to know what is the percent passing rate of taking the test the first time.
That's a good question. It's been changing actually. Initially, it wasn't very high. In the first year or two, I think it was like a 30%. I think it's higher. I will have to check, but Jamie, have you heard lately? I think it's closer. It's over 50% now, right?
Yeah, I was thinking the last time I heard Bill Hodge say, I think it was closer to 60%. So yeah, a little above 50.
It's not overly easy, but it is definitely doable. But you definitely need to prepare.
Right. Okay, so the next question is, why would it take someone 5 to 6 years from application to get a GISP?
Well, I think the goal is to, like most certifications, we want to make sure that people have a reasonable amount of experience, right? Because part of the test or part of the certification is that you're a professional, you're working with a set of ethics, you've reached a basic minimum level of capability.
Okay. Bill Nye wants to know, can you talk about the best ways to get contribution to the profession point?
Yeah, probably
You're doing one.
Right. The easiest way I found, and let's go back. Let me pop in. Let me go back to the very beginning. I want to have those requirements up. I found that the easiest way for me has been to do conference presentations. I started doing presentations before I ever did a GISP, and I kind of started liking those. Sometimes the challenge is identifying a topic area, because we feel like, I always felt like I really wasn't knowledgeable enough to have something special. But most of the times, most of us have areas that we work that's kind of unique, and finding ways to share those. I started very early on because when I started GIS, I was a CAD guy as well, and I've done CAD just as much as I've done GIS, and I've spent a lot of time integrating. So that was kind of a niche. I started doing presentations on integrations back and forth a lot of times. I started hitting matter of fact, this conference here. I remember one year, and I was working for a consulting firm. We had some presentations back out, and so I ended up doing 4 labs on GIS CAD integration, different parts of that. So it was kind of an interesting year that year. But really, going to presentations, AGIC is a great one. It's an easy one to get started in. It's local, and it's a very supportive group. It's a lot easier to get into sometimes in the Esri or some of the big international conferences, but local conferences are a great source.
I think we have time for one more question. I have one here about, our programming language is part of the test. If so, which languages? What percentage of the test focuses?
It's not really programming languages. If you look at the KSAs, and let's get down here, they may talk about the process, like the example I shared about converting a geographic coordinate to agreements in seconds to decimal. You may have modeling and kind of how you design it, but you don't have, at least I didn't experience, haven't seen any specific language. Problem is language is going to change monthly, yearly, etc. I'm on my, 7th or 8th programming language I've had to learn in my career.
Yeah. Okay, so there were a lot of questions here. We'll try to get back to them later, and maybe Rick can look through there when some of the presentations and respond to some of them.
You betcha.
But we have 2 more presentations. I think we'll need to move on a little bit. There's a lot of great questions. I do want to point out that one of our premium sponsors, Teach Me GIS, does do a course on preparing for the GIS test. Anyways, with that, I want to thank Rick. And
thank you. And
I'm going to,
as soon as I figure out how to mute.
Yeah. All right, so you're going to bear with me as your moderator, and I also happen to be assisting with this next presentation. So next up, we're going to talk about the Women in GIS chapter, and that is going to be with Priyanka Miller, who is the co-founder of the Women in GIS, the Arizona chapter for Women in GIS, co-founder with me. And Priyanka's going to kick it off to tell you more about the organization. Let me give you a little bit of background about Priyanka. She is the founder and president and owner of Mill Geospatial, which is a GIS consulting firm that she founded in 2011. So she's been she has over 15 years of experience and extensive experience in identifying, supporting, and delivering GIS needs for local and state governments. Her past experience involves securing and managing multifaceted GIS asset management projects involving numerous departments and organizations. She has a degree in architecture and a master's in management information systems. She was also selected by Bank of America Institute at Cornell University and successfully completed a certificate program in women's entrepreneurship. So she does a whole lot of stuff, and I'm really proud to work with her for the Women in GIS. With that, Priyanka, are you online? She was having some internet issues earlier.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that, Jamie. Yes, I did have, sorry about my video. It's the day of the presentation, 2 internet connections, none of them are working. So there you are. So yes, thank you. I'm Priyanka Miller. And Jamie, if you wanted to share our slides.
I'm getting ready to power that up.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So Jamie and I, we started the Women in GIS chapter. Jamie, do you want to introduce yourself or do you want me to do that?
Oh, that's, just go ahead.
All right. Great. So the next slide, you will see pictures of our last year's Women in GIS Eva Reed's presentation. That's kind of how all of this came about. Was last year Eva was here from the Women in GIS International and had a fantastic presentation. It generated a lot of interest, basically talking about how to be an ally for professional women. Jamie and I were sitting next to each other, and Jamie looked at me and said, "Would you like to do this?" And of course I said yes. So that's how the chapter came into being. We were formally an organized chapter starting in January. We have quarterly meetings, which are more formal. We do presentations, technical and otherwise, that Jamie will talk to you more about later. We also do a monthly mugs and mornings. We grab our cups of coffee and we get together from 8 to 9 and talk about, we have a theme for that. So that again, Jamie will touch upon later. But first, we'd like to give you a little bit more detail about our chapter and our website. Next slide, Jamie.
I'm trying to get there. There you go.
There you go. So there you go. So womeningis-az.org is where you can find us. There is a great way, on the next slide, we if you scroll to the bottom, you have our mission statement that Jamie's just going to put up. There you go. See, there's a mission statement, and there's a great way you can sign up for our email list or our mailing list. I really do want to stress that, and you can read the our mission statement. Even though it says it's a Women in GIS group, but and we are focused on, networking, growth, and, basically success for all our members. But we truly are an inclusive, non-gender specific group, and we are welcome to all allies for women or anybody really in the geospatial field. Now comes the fun part. Next slide, Jamie, please. So this is the part that I love. So we started with 32 members in January. This was before our first in-person meeting, and since then we have grown to having about 241 website subscribers. So this is exciting because we weren't really sure, if this would take off or why were we doing this. This right here tells us the need for our group and what an amazing experience it has been for us and hopefully for others. So we went virtual in March, of course, thanks to COVID. We had to pivot from being an in-person to all virtual, and that kind of really increased our subscribers and the need for having mugs and mornings and other such ways to connect. The next slide, Jamie, thank you. Oh, and before we move on, I do want to say that, there is no sign-up fees. There are no dues. It really is open to all. You can connect with us on the website and other avenues. So we ran a poll to kind of see what is it that our members or our subscribers really wanted to see. Of course, you can see here the top 3 were, technical GIS presentations, professional development. Our next meeting in November is going to be about professional development, and I would encourage you all to go ahead and join us. Now, since the next slide is all of Jamie's pet projects, Jamie, would you like to talk about those?
Okay, so this is, we have the social media if you need to connect with us. We got a LinkedIn group, so you can join. Of course, we have a Facebook. We also have a Twitter account, which isn't working right now because apparently Twitter thinks we are an automated account or something bizarre, but we do have social media out there if you want to keep up to date with us. and what's going on. We always post announcements out there. And like Priyanka said, this is our fall meeting coming up, so it will be virtual attendance on November 13th. Anybody is welcome to join. Just register on our website, and you'll get the meeting information. We have a really great lineup of panelists that are going to be talking about professional development and their specific professional development journey. So it'll be a really great one to attend to get some inspiration for yourself. And like Tom said, we average about 40 people that attend our meetings, and it's growing. So we hope you can join us. And those are the quarterly ones. And then, as Priyanka mentioned earlier, we did start up this new thing called Mugs and Mornings. And it's, like she said, we do it once a month, and we offer two different days in the month, usually near the end of the month. And these are the dates for October. And basically, we just do a virtual Zoom meetup, and it's a networking thing where we have like one little topic, and each person gets a chance to share. And so it's just a really great way, informal way to get together and network with other professionals. And it's been a big hit. So what's coming next? Sorry. So what's coming up next? We are, as part of the GIS, Women GIS International, they recently just finally became a official nonprofit status. And so we're hoping to do some sort of fundraising types of things and leveraging that the international chapter, if we can, their nonprofit status, to do some fundraising, to do some scholarships for people to attend the AGIC Symposium when it does have a cost again, when we all get to meet in person again. Hopefully that happens next year, but you never know. And also just concentrating on, engaging, networking with other chapters, supporting professionals in the States that don't have chapters. So we even have some people that have joined in our Mugs and Mornings. The last one we had somebody from Maine showed up, and that was great. And so we have people from Colorado and a lot of different interests. So the one positive thing about having to pivot to virtual is that we can be more, get more people can join and help them network with them. So that's pretty great. And then, of course, we're going on with some more special topics. We may do some special topics and special sessions now and then as stuff comes up. And so with that, we're gonna just give you our contact information. If you have any questions or want to connect with us, of course, you can reach us also through our website, the womeningis-az.org, if you want to connect with us. So if anybody has any questions, you can put those in there. I know we're not as questions with JSP. I'll look through the chat real quick here. Shay, loving the mugs and mornings. It is a nice, relaxed way. Priyanka, do you want to add anything you wanted to add?
You know what? Since I really do like quotes from other great people, so I think I can speak for both myself and Jamie. I think the whole goal of creating this group is to really give a platform to others to shine and to support them. The quote from Tom Peters when he said, true leaders don't create followers, they create more leaders. I think both Jamie and I back that thought, and the whole concept of having this group is kind of that. That's all I have to add, Jim. Thanks.
That's perfect. Thank you, Priyanka. It's been really great. Really appreciate getting to know all the people through the Women in GIS Arizona chapter. All right, so we're a little out of time here. So go ahead.
Saying I agree and thank you.
All right. I think we have Steve Whitney on the line here, and I'm going to pass the presenter ball over to him and introduce him. There he is. Almost goes without saying, but for those of you that don't know, Steve has been in the GIS profession since 1988, and I'll let you guys do the math, starting as a college intern where Pima County first established their GIS. So currently he manages the team that is responsible for supporting enterprise GIS applications, including the management of the county's GIS library development and maintenance of web mapping applications, GIS hardware and software administration, GIS data dissemination, 911 support, and GIS software vendor relations. His specialties include GIS project management, geospatial data processing and analysis, image processing, elevation data, and his most important specialty is managing the AGIC conference. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Steve.
Thanks, Jami. Yeah, managing the conference, it's been a pleasure, always has been. So today, I want to talk about leadership as part of professional development. And the way I approached this was to create a survey and send it out to past, current, and upcoming GIS leaders in Arizona to pick their brains about what things were most important to them, what qualities are most important to them as a leader, as they became a leader, or as they're thinking about becoming a leader, because I really want to encourage others to become leaders, and somewhat selfishly, I want to encourage people to become leaders in AGIC because, as Jami mentioned, I've been around for a long time. A lot of others of us have been around a long time. We're not going to be around forever. And so we're trying to encourage people to step up and get involved and become leaders within AGIC so that we can leave everything in good hands as we move off into the future. So I emphasize technology here on this slide because leadership and technology can be different. As we all know, working in a technological environment, especially in a leadership role, take on additional qualities or tasks to provide technological solutions as well as general leadership solutions. So the survey included a portion on leadership qualities. Respondents ranked the following leadership qualities, again, that they personally found most useful. So things like passion, a passion for what they're involved in, a desire to share with others, risk-taking, not afraid to take risk, evaluates the level of risk and works to minimize it, being team-oriented, that you value input from others, that you delegate effectively and empower others as well, and be creative, seek creative solutions to difficult situations. You inject innovative ideas and provoke forward-thinking discussion. You have confidence. You're comfortable with the decisions that you make. You don't waffle back and forth too much over stuff. And you're not afraid to tackle difficult situations. And you're not overconfident either. And you provide inspiration. You have a vision. You lead by example. You take a positive approach. And you communicate effectively. And there's empathy. So there's a term called put a face on it that I heard from somebody throughout my career. I don't know if it was Gene or not, but it's basically consider the human factor. And it came across as if you really want to get a point across or really sell your idea, put the human factor. How's it going to affect people themselves? Put a face on it. Also, in terms of empathy, you take different perspectives into account and you understand individual views and desires. And then accountability. You take responsibility for your actions and your decisions. You admit to fault and you ensure accountability amongst the team. And lastly, attitude. And to me, this is where things like a sense of humor comes into play and making work fun. So looking at the rankings of these qualities, just focus on the upper portion that I've got boxed in because the absolute scores don't mean a whole lot in this case. It's really the relative scores between them is what jumped out at me as I was evaluating this. So among the top tier qualities, we see attitude, accountability, and passion. In the middle tier, there's team-oriented and inspiration. In the lower tier, there's empathy, creative, being confident, and risk-taking. So kind of interesting how these played out. I try not to read too much into this, but everybody's going to read into this a little differently, and it's just an interesting look at how people rank these different types of qualities. So then the next part of the survey was some questions for people to answer in free form. And the first one was, why do you consider yourself a leader? Or why do you think others look to you as a leader? And this has always been an interesting question for me, because at times, some of you have heard me not so much whine, but always say, why do people always pick me as leading, as a leader? Why am I the one that always has to lead this stuff? So it's a little bit comical in a way, but it's also an opportunity to do a little self-reflection and really kind of think about what qualities you exude that keep you being chosen as a leader. So obviously there's things like experience, confidence, and dedication, being proactive, respect and trust, that's a two-way street. Making decisions together, I think that's really important, that a good leadership quality is including everybody in the decision-making process, and also important is empowering others to lead as well. Don't just be the sole leader on a team. Take advantage of your team members to empower them to lead as well. And then attitude, again, that enjoyment, and that's part of, empathy and making work fun. And the next question was about mentorship. Did they have, do you have a mentor or mentors as you grew professionally? And interestingly, and probably thankfully, there was only one no response to that. The other interesting part was, those of us that were in college or went to college, this concept of student status, I think we've all experienced as students. And I liked this comment about no concern with student status in a college setting, is that your mentors or the people that you went to for advice or to ask questions, they didn't consider your status as a student, which I think is very important and ideal for students especially. The classic, there are no stupid questions. I try and instill that in people, ask anything. There's no stupid questions. The other part that I noted was, there's always some good and there's some bad leaders, and you can always learn what not to do from the bad ones. And then this notion of mentoring without realizing it, where you simply lead by example. Doesn't necessarily have to be a formal relationship. People can see other leaders and look at the traits that they have and learn from that just as well. I think part of our roles as leaders is to mentor others. I really believe in that strongly, that's part of being a leader. And then also kind of following on to that last comment about mentoring without realizing it is, you can make your own mentor. You can seek to work with folks whose traits you admire and learn from them without them actually realizing that they're mentoring you. Next question was, to what effect did your parents and family environment play in becoming a leader? And this comes from the fact that myself being in a management position for many years now and working for government, I have been fortunate, so to speak, to be put through many types of management trainings over my career. Everything from Stephen Covey to homegrown ones. Regardless, you can always come away with something useful out of these. And the last one I went through talked about the various environments that you encounter as you're in your career. And family environment was one of those. And so I've always been curious. It kind of goes back to my question about why am I always chosen as a leader? Why am I prone to being a leader or prone to stepping up and being a leader? What kinds of things did my parents instill in me, or what kind of family environment or family things that went on maybe had a role in that? So that was one of the questions I wanted to get at, and lots of response about, obviously we learn a lot from our parents and our family environment, things like learning work skills early and continuing to apply them, getting support for schooling and encouragement towards higher education. Good-spirited family debates was a fun one that jumped out. The person was in a large family, so they learned that they had to get their 2 cents in and be heard. Be humble and work hard. Again, encouragement to grow. Support regardless of their understanding, I thought was an interesting notion, that you get support, for your passion, for what you want to do, even though those that are supporting you may not totally understand it. And again, it can provide negative examples that you learn to avoid. Traumatic family experiences was an interesting one too. My own life, my father died when I was very young, and so I wonder about that and how that may have shaped me in becoming a leader. And then leadership in times of failure. I think that's one of the things that is most impactful to us and to people when we see people step up as leaders in times of failure, or when they fail, they pick themselves up. The classic, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, learn from it, and keep going. How important was formal education in helping you become a leader? Obviously it opens doors. Networking was a great point. In a formal education environment, you're not as pressured, I don't think, as you are in a work environment. So I think you're a little more free to network and reach out to others. It's just, it should be the same in the work environment as well. It's just there's a little more pressure to get your work done, so to speak. Mentors within our educational experiences are important, and the inherent learning environment is a good environment for being inquisitive, asking questions, reaching out to people to learn more about where you want to go in your future. And then, were there any major experiences that you had that influenced your leadership development? Lots of the classics. Getting married was a great one that I loved. Having kids was another one. Loss of loved ones. We talked about those traumatic experiences that you have in your life. Another great one was no choice, pushed into it, falls in your lap, you're voluntold. to be a leader. So some interesting things that cropped out of that. And then what resources do you think others would find useful in developing their leadership skills and qualities? And right off the bat, professional organizations like AGIC, and also locally. So there's lots of local groups, Women in GIS, as an example, local GIS user groups around the state that you can get involved in. Present your work at conferences like this. Participate in organized activities like conferences and workshops and things like that. Again, mentors shows up all over the place. An interesting thought that somebody put forth was presentations by public safety personnel, and that was framed in that public safety personnel are used to working in stressful situations as well as leading during times of distress. So it's kind of that high pressure leadership and the skills that they employ to deal with situations like that. I thought that was a really interesting thought on that. Of course, there's all kinds of books out there, training courses, and leadership presentations like this. So within 8, we hope to coordinate and come up with more things like this. So we'd be really interested, especially from those of you that are interested in becoming a leader or would like to work on your skills to becoming a leader. We'd love to get feedback from you about what kinds of presentations, workshops, what kind of things you see would be most useful to you that the AGIC community could provide as a resource for that. Volunteering is always a great way to learn from others and practice your skills at leadership. Again, good and bad leaders, bad leaders, they're both easy to spot. Think about what you like about them and what you don't like. And lastly, leaders can exist at any level in an organization. So you can be a leader right now. You may not even know it at times, but you also have opportunities all over the place to step up and be a leader. So with that, that's the end of my presentation. So I believe there's time for questions and whatnot from any of us in this session.
Steve, we did have a question in here. I'm not sure if you're looking in the chat, but there's one. Teresa asks, environment and upbringing do help to form your leadership skills, but are there classes, either online or in person or other places, where one can go to learn leadership skills?
Yeah, they're all, I did Google leadership courses. I mean, they're all over the place. One of the things I wanted to mention, I think I mentioned in my opening day presentation, was we're trying to put material together in AGIC to provide for that. NISGIC has their GIO Academy, even though it's focused on, kind of top level GIO type leadership. They say it's got content in there for everybody. URISA also runs a GIS Leadership Academy as well. So there's some GIS-oriented organizations out there. NISGIC, URISA, that's just a couple of them. Like I said, within AGIC, we'd like to develop some materials and workshops as well. So again, we'd love feedback on what you guys think would be useful for you. I think a lot of it comes from listening to other leaders, and that's one of the reasons why we put together this professional development track that has a lot of leadership presentations. There's some great ones coming up this afternoon. So definitely take those in if you can. I see some other suggestions in the chat. GISsuccess.com. There's agent coordinate GIS-based volunteer opportunities while helping NGOs or something. That's that's a really good point that we should look at, partnering with some NGOs. And I mean, the thing you've heard about AGIC, it's all volunteer. So and there's it's a really low pressure environment to network with others and learn from others, because a lot of people that are involved in AGIC on the committees and work groups are leaders within their organizations as well. Patrick, the Outreach Committee is developing a mentoring program, so stay tuned on that.
And so there are some great other suggestions in the chat. The Eurissa has a GIS Leadership Academy. Tori talked about that. Was really good. And I think Jen Facilis, if she's on here, she attended that and thought it was really great too. I remember her talking about it. So yeah, there's some great things there. I know we still have 7 more minutes. I don't know if you want to continue on that or open it back up for other stuff. There were a lot of questions for Rick. I think he addressed most of them in the chat. So I'm looking on here. I'm sorry, guys. I'm scrolling through the chat to see if there's other things. Kim Denny posted a really great thing up in the chat there about the NISDIC Geo Women in Leadership. Doing a virtual roundtable. Steve, there's another question in the chat. Do you want to address that?
Let's see. With your experience and tenure in your current position, how do you stay motivated and what are your career goals? Have you considered moving IT management? That's an interesting question. I've always been a data geek, so I love GIS data. I love messing with GIS data, so that I maybe it's just me, but I never get bored with that. I don't mean to give a shameless plug to Esri, but I think we all work and live in Esri world. There's so much to learn within the Esri environment. And as an example, within the past year and a half, I took on learning ArcGIS Server and publishing web services. So, I mean, the technology, especially GIS, that keeps me motivated. And, again, being a geek like that, I love to share that with others and, teach others how to use this technology and what I've learned using this technology. So, again, I think it goes back to just, whatever instilled that in me, however that got instilled, it's just that passion to learn and passion to share with others more than anything that keeps me motivated.
Okay, so I guess we have 5 minutes. We can either open it up again or we can just announce what's coming up next. I guess there's a lunch lounge next. And I wanted to, before you guys all bail off here, I want to thank our presenters. Thank you, Rick, for telling us about the GISP. There's a lot of great stuff in there. People still have questions, so please feel free to contact Rick. Also, if you have more questions, if he doesn't know, he can get the answer for you. And thank you to my co-founder, Priyanka, with the Women in GIS, and, of course, to Steve for presenting on GIS leadership in Arizona. So please, everyone, remember to fill out the survey. If you want to do a little lunch lounge, it's an opportunity for networking. Otherwise, we'll see you again at 1 o'clock at the different tracks that are going on at 1. So thank you, everybody, and have a great day.